Everyone. It's October 3rd, 2023. My name is Joan Wadiska. I'm the chair of the College Partnership Laboratory School Standing Committee. Welcome to our October meeting. I call us to order. I will note that I have approved the remote participation of Mr. Bill Hansen under the board's bylaws under section 2.23708.3B3 of the Code of Virginia. Based on such participation is allowed because his principal residence is more than 60 miles away from the meeting location identified in the public notice. Mr. Chapman, would you please call the roll of the standing committee members present today?
Yes, sorry, was making sure we have Mr. Hansen. I'm not sure if he's there or not, but Mr. Bailey? Here. Ms. Wadiska?
Present.
Dr. Moran?
I'm standing and here.
It is a standing committee, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Hansen? We will work very quickly to see if we can get Mr. Hansen on.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman.
Thank you.
All right, we will begin with a moment of silence and then we will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please join me in a moment of silence. Please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
The members of the standing committee were provided an agenda in advance of today's meeting. Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda as presented to the standing committee?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. The agenda is approved. Now we'll move to approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented to the standing committee?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. The minutes are approved. At this time, we'll go to public comment on agenda items. Mr. Chapman, are there any members of the public that would like to address the public agenda items before us today?
There were no signups.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chapman. With that, then we will proceed to action items for discussion. Today, we are delighted to bring up item A, which is the first review of the College Partnership Laboratory School application from Germannic Community College. The committee will hear from Taylor Landry, Special Assistant to the President for Strategic Initiatives at Germannic Community College, followed by our very own Dr. Andy Armstrong. Please join us, come up to the podium, and we will look forward to hearing more about your lab school application on Future Educators Academy. Sure. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Byard. I'm a former retired dean at Laurel Ridge Community College of Early College and High School Partnerships.
And I'm Taylor Landry. I'm the Special Assistant to the President for Strategic Initiatives at Germannic Community College. Good morning.
And we stand here before you today to present Future Educators Academy on behalf of a very strong collaborative. So our mission, I can hardly see that. The mission of the Future Educators Academy is to produce well-prepared future educators by providing accessible, supportive, and innovative learning experiences. The vision.
Thank you for pausing. We'll get this sorted out. For every teacher out there wondering if sometimes technology is challenging. It happens here to us too.
Looking proud.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. So the vision is Future Educators Academy will provide an accelerated, high-quality teacher education and licensure pathway to a diverse group of high school juniors and seniors through collaborative partnerships between community colleges, universities, and public school divisions. Our partners are secondary partners, the counties of Culpeper, Madison, Orange, and Rappahannock currently, and post-secondary partners, Germanna Community College, Laurel Ridge, and James Madison University, with potential expansion to the school divisions in the Laurel Ridge School service area, Clark County, Fauquier, Frederick, Warren, Shenandoah, Page, Winchester. So what does it look like? Basically, it's rising juniors and seniors will complete an associate degree while concurrently completing their requirements for high school graduation. The degree will transfer to the School of Education at James Madison University seamlessly and the University of Mary Washington per articulation agreements. The education degree will prepare students to pursue elementary and special education, the top two identified critical need areas in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And students complete degree as a cohort of 24 students on campus at the Daniel Technology Center in Culpeper. An expansion will include sites at the Middletown and Fauquier campuses of Laurel Ridge Community College. Student supports, we work very hard to make sure that we have what students need. They're very young adults going into education, and obviously we want them to be well prepared to be that professional educator once they enter the classroom. So we know that students may struggle in certain classes like statistics, and so we will embed tutors in specific courses such as statistics. Disability services will be provided in collaboration with the school divisions. Friday tutor sessions for students who may struggle will also be provided. Preparation for Praxis Math Assessment or the JMU Math Assessment, which is required. Students will prepare and take the VCLA, Virginia Communication Literacy Assessment, mentorship from JMU and UMW faculty and other professionals in the field. Experiential learning experiences in school divisions will be provided, and campus visits to JMU and UMW so students can experience and get to know faculty and associate themselves with the university level. Student commitment. So when students look at joining this program, they must have a GPA of 3.0. That is what is required for all classes to transfer to the university. A 2-year commitment once the student completes at the 4-year level to the sponsoring school division is expected upon graduation.
And this is, I just want to say, an exciting opportunity for students as well. So they're committing to teaching in their base school division, the area where they grew up, the school that they went to. And we're committing that if they're successful in this program, they're committed, they're passionate future educators, they've got a job when they graduate. And that's really powerful for our students. So it is a student commitment, but it's a commitment from us to them as well, that we want to hire them. We want to put them in classrooms and have them demonstrate their capacity that we know they have because we've seen them through this program.
So what is the structure of the lab school? We have a governing board, which are basically the college presidents, division superintendents, university deans. We will have an advisory board of curriculum experts from the school divisions, parents, university and community college leaders, faculty, and possibly a student, the director of the lab school. And then collaboration with academic deans from Germanna and Laurel Ridge on faculty selection and evaluation will occur. Collaboration with community college education program leads to make sure that we are on track with what four-year schools are expecting and to work on those experiential learning experiences, textbooks, and other related resources. And then the education program leads and faculty at the community college level. The program of study is a 2-year transfer degree in education, 60 credits, aligned with high school graduation requirements. We've worked very hard on that to make sure that students would be able to get their English, get their government, all of the things that they need in order to graduate high school. And so we feel very comfortable. We worked very hard on getting this degree worked out so that it works for high school graduation.
Yeah, this was really a collaboration between our K-12 partners, community colleges, and universities to make sure this is aligning with what students need to graduate high school, what students need to come in as juniors and enter colleges of education so that they're ready, and of course, what they need to complete their associate degree in education at Germanna and Laurel Ridge.
Yeah.
It's really tightly aligned, and the appeal of the cohort model is that students are getting the extra support of having a class of educators together from start to finish.
And I also want to give a shout out to our JMU partners. Many of their education faculty were involved in these conversations, obviously, to make sure that everything would transfer in seamlessly. So credentials, that's an important part of high school graduation. So students will be able to get the WISE assessment. Many of them use that to graduate. So they'll take that course in the program, and then they will take the WISE assessment at their base high school. CPR and first aid certification, which is required for teacher licensure. They will be able to get that. Successful completion of the math or the praxis exam, and then the Virginia Communication Literacy Assessment. And then, of course, the associate's degree in education. Experiential learning experiences, we have a variety of things, which I'm having trouble. So required classroom practicums. So there are 2 courses that require a practicum. Students will be doing those in all of the school divisions participating in the program. Observing best teaching practices such as action-based learning in Rappahannock public schools. Collaborating with professional teachers to understand concepts and to ask relevant questions. Visits to the 4-year schools. Invitation to participate in faculty meetings and IEP meetings and parent conferences, and understanding the confidentiality that is required when you attend those meetings. Completion of VDOE modules, including mandated reporter, dyslexia awareness, and restraint training.
One thing that we heard when we were talking to students, families, and our partners at the K-12 divisions was that there are a lot of young people who want to be teachers, but they don't necessarily know what goes into being a teacher. They see their teacher in their classroom, and that's, of course, a huge component of education, but they don't see all of the nuts and bolts that go into education. And so when we designed experiential learning, we wanted to, one, create this rotation so that they were observing different school divisions, their strengths, their areas of expertise, but also that they're seeing beyond the classroom. They know about the classroom experience, and they are, they're interested in this, they desire this, but we want to give them the whole picture so that when they graduate and enter a classroom, they're fully prepared.
And most importantly, we want them to have the disposition to be a professional, to understand the protocols in that line that exist with students and also with parents. And so we'll work very hard on that. So mentorship and transitional support, inclusion in new teacher seminars with faculty and at JMU and UMW. Professional presentations by faculty and business partners on soft skills, reflection, legal issues, professionalism, licensure requirements, and enhancement programs like ESL. Applying for college transfer and scholarship opportunities, including the FAFSA. And if not transferring out, Plan B.
You're going to talk about same.
Yeah, we know that some students may not be successful in reaching that C grade in every class, which is required for transfer. A student will have the opportunity to work in any of the public school divisions as a parapro, and then eventually go into the Bachelor's of Independent Studies at JMU, and still be able to get that teacher licensure after completing that program. So they have an alternative pathway to get there. You know, one thing about this program is that we meet all of the tenets of lab schools. And so we work very hard to ensure that we're hitting all of the marks, because we know how difficult it is to be a classroom teacher.
So I'll talk a little bit about school finance and sustainability. If you've taken a look at our budget, you'll see that we're conceptualizing the use of startup funds, both to buy some equipment, but also to sustain and sort of seed the lab school for the first couple of years. And the startup funds and per pupil funds will go towards supporting faculty, supporting staff, including advisors who are going to be working closely with the students, IT professionals. These days, learning involves technology, and we need to anticipate any sort of technology challenges and be ready to meet students where they are, so that they never tripped up, they're never reaching a barrier because of technology and tech access. That also includes mobile hotspots. We know that this is a rural area. Some folks don't have internet access at home. We saw during the pandemic, internet access is critical to learning, right? So we've included the cost of hotspots and covering the cost of internet access for students who may have trouble with that at home. It's including things like breakfast and grab and go snack items, because we know students don't learn well when they're hungry. It includes their textbook costs. And of course, it covers the expenses related to this experiential learning, which is really core to our program and core to success for students. We know that community donor support is going to be critical for our long-term success. And we've talked to our foundations about ways that we can engage our community around building the next cohort of future teachers. One thing that we've talked about is the idea of sponsoring a future teacher or sponsoring a cohort, so that our donors really understand where the money is going and have a connection to students. It's incredible because we know that when we have strong teachers and strong classrooms, we're benefiting every area of our community. So this is a really easy academy, a really easy thing to get behind if you're thinking about where you want to donate some funds. And then we also understand that if there are gaps, every partner involved in this academy wants to see this happen. Our school divisions have identified a path inspired by the governor's school model for a per slot charge approach to funding some of those gaps and building sustainability. Our community colleges recognize that we're going to be involved in supporting this as well, covering some of the cost of faculty and things of that nature. We really want to make sure that this is accessible for students, and that is our #1 priority.
So we feel like we are addressing the teacher shortage. Young people go through high school, they are exposed through career coaches, career advisors, work-based learning coordinators to various careers. There are many students who want to be teachers. The Commonwealth is facing a severe teacher shortage, particularly in rural areas. The critical need areas right now are special ed and elementary education. According to state statistics, there were over 4,300 teacher vacancies in Virginia as of mid-September. We know that teachers, counselors, career coaches, parents, and others, while students are in high school, can touch these young people. We're hopeful that we can also touch underrepresented students, students who look like students in our schools. We need these folks to become teachers. And so we're very hopeful that we can also push that a little bit. FEA is helping to support Executive Directive number 3, addressing teacher shortages in Virginia schools. Students have the support of their high school teachers, counselors, and administrators, as well as community college faculty and resources, thus reducing barriers for qualified individuals to enter the profession. FEA has the support of public school divisions to community colleges and universities like JMU and the University of Mary Washington, thus increasing the number of candidates eligible to fill public school divisions' hard to staff positions. The FEA offers students the opportunity to learn about becoming a teacher, pursue a teacher education program with transitional and student support services provided, thus strengthening strategies to recruit and retain a diverse, highly qualified educator workforce. We know that many of these young people will return home to work. So if we can capture them and get them in a program, and then they have a commitment of a job once they complete the program, this is a win for everyone. Thank you, and we're open for questions.
Thank you for that excellent presentation. Is there anyone else here from your community that would like to address the lab committee at this time before we do Q&A?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Dr. Brad and Dr. Gullick.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be before you today, but these are the women that actually did the work. So we need to tip our hats to Brenda and Taylor. We were talking earlier about being daughters of school teachers in rural South Dakota. How likely is that? And South Dakota, you'd kind of say it that way. But we know personally how important these teachers are to young people in rural communities. And we also know that except for a few, most students who graduate from our teachers' colleges do not want to necessarily go to a rural community. The pay is often less, the duties are probably more, but we also know that the reward, being part of a small town and being part of a community where people care and love their children and want what's best for them and are so proud that it might be their cousin or their neighbor or somebody they taught in Sunday school teaching their kid, that means everything. And I have to say, and we have Dr. Tony Brads with us, Dr. Eric Ehrenhardt with us. We have our good friend from JMU, whose last name I can't pronounce, so I'm going to ask somebody else to pronounce it. Zugelder. We have these supports with us today because every one of us is driven by the passion of the individual, And in this case, it's the individual teacher and the individual student, because we know that's where the magic happens. And so it's that passion that's informed this application every step of the way. And we're so excited about the possibilities. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go to the, oh, I'm so sorry. Do we have, my apologies, please.
Madam Chairman, no problem, not apology needed. Madam Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Tony Brads. I'm Division Superintendent for Culpeper County Public Schools. And on behalf of my colleagues in the first initial cohort of this effort, I want to say thank you for considering this opportunity. I want to thank Dr. Gullickson here today, because when we as superintendents came to her with this notion, it was let's find a way to yes, not any obstacle whatsoever. Because as you know, you're the experts. VCCS is charged with workforce development. What more important workforce development do we have than getting teachers in our classrooms? I will not belabor you with all the statistics about needing teachers, but we need them. But when we saw this presentation initially, we thought, well, this could be a path to take something we have now, redevelop it, repurpose it. And if you notice that chart right behind you of all all 8 superintendents regions, it makes me think of how, I may say this, strange are the service areas for all the community colleges. You know what I'm talking about. I was previously a superintendent for 10 years in a school division that was divided in the middle by a service area. But we had great relationship with both community colleges that serve that one school system. And we have partnerships with other school divisions as well. But my point is that those 8 regions can benefit when you have, in the next phase of this, over half of the divisions in Region 4 have a great interest and a great need of having this, and I'll say it because it hasn't been said, either teach into or 2+2, whatever you want to call it. This may start as a lab school, but I really think that this is the beginning of how the Commonwealth could address teacher shortage from here on. Because in combination with our public school systems, VCCS and our community colleges and our our public 4 years and some private 4 years if that's appropriate, that we can develop a pipeline. We think our young people can be ready and mature enough to teach in two. That has arisen in our conversations. We think that maturity will be developed, it will be there, but we really believe that this, I will say, is the best proposal that you have seen and that you will see. Yes, and it's the only proposal that is going to be replicatable and generalizable to the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you. All right, at this time, and I very much appreciate both of you being here today to speak on behalf of the application. I know that it is a journey to be here. And you are running a school system, and a community college. And your presence here demonstrates the seriousness and your passion for the application. And so I thank you for that additional effort of time because I know it's taking you away from other duties. So let me just recognize that first. I'd like to go to the committee members first for any questions or remarks that they may have. Dr. Moran, I know you're waiting on, yeah, go ahead.
Well, first and foremost, I would expect no less from Dr. Brad's than his continued passion and commitment to this kind of work. And I think like every educator, I'm not on, I'm sorry. Come on. There we go. Like, I think every educator, not just across the Commonwealth of the United States, everybody is aware that we are well behind in terms of the numbers of educators that we are going to need and need currently. So what I really love about this is it is addressing not just an immediate need, but a long-term need. And it reminds me to some degree of the kind of grassroots work that started in Finland decades ago, that led them to have one of the most well-developed workforces in the world in education. And so I see it as a real model, real potential for, as Dr. Brad said, replication in other areas. And for me, I think that you are definitely building out something that really could make a real difference, particularly in rural schools. And I used to work in Orange County, so I certainly remember those days. One of the things that caught my attention when you were talking, and it's sort of, it's a small piece, but it's one I want to explore a little bit more, is that I love the idea of immersing young people in the actual work through an experiential learning model. That is something that I'd like to put a check beside. I did have a little bit of a red flag about the idea of including kids in things like parent conferences, and want to be sure that as you're working back with your staff inside school divisions, that you have a very specific protocol in place that crosses all the T's and dots all the I's on that, because that's the kind of thing that could take a project like this and have it become the next headline in a newspaper. So I just want to be sure that that's one that caught my attention. You mentioned that you would want to be sure kids are trained. I think it goes beyond just training kids in terms of confidentiality, that there are some pieces that you need to put in place on that. But other than that, I'm hats off to you. I think it's a wonderful startup.
Thank you.
Mr. Bailey?
No, I too was, just very struck by the proposal and just the narrative today too. So thank you. And also just this, the teacher shortage isn't just like a crisis locally in a state, but just across the country. So I just have hopes that this could be replicable, not across the state, but also be inspirational for other districts across the country that are struggling with this thing too. I also resonated with the experiential learning and just both in the presentation and also the application. The only question I had, which is more out of curiosity, but you had a great section about what school districts are committing to. And on the other side of this, once students complete your program, are the participating districts, do they commit to interviewing them as part of to hire, or what is the commitment on the receiving end once students go through the program?
We'll let Dr. Brad's answer.
Well, our intention is that students who complete the program, if they come back to any one of the participating school divisions, they will be hired, provided they have the qualifications. I mean, we cannot promise a job
Right.
before they show up
That's
and go
right,
through the
yeah.
process. But short of that, all the boxes are checked. Yes, they have a high preference to direct employment, and they will have had experiential learning within our school divisions. They will be known individuals to us. And again, that was one important thing for us in our first group of cohorts with Rappahannock, Orange, Madison, and Culpeper was, okay, well, maybe someone wants to come back and they're from Madison, but it works out that they want to come back and serve their 2 years in Orange. That will be fine.
Okay.
So, but almost a promise, but can't
Yeah.
quite do that because our HR directors wouldn't let us promise that. Yeah, there's a piece there, I'm sure.
That makes sense, but it is fast tracking to consideration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lightning speed, train, fast track. Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Hanson, do you have any questions for Germanna Community College?
Just a quick question, just thank you all, just a wonderful proposal, and thank you for the work and the vision that has gone into it. Just regarding the relationship and experience that the students will have at the community college, maybe just elaborate on that, but also will there be any opportunities with either James Madison or Mary Washington as well, from a potential transition with the reciprocity agreements in place, just if there's any agreements in place, or just what type of experience they might be able to have there.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that question, and I can speak to that. I think your first portion of the question was really, what's the relationship between the students and the community college? And one of the things that we're focused on from conception until the completion of the application, and of course into actually implementing the academy, is that there is a strong relationship between the students and each other, the students and their faculty, and the students and the support team, including advisors, tutors, supplemental instruction. So we know that these are young people. We know that this is a rigorous program, and we want to build in relationships first, because we know that a sense of belonging and a sense of connection is critical for success. So students are in this cohort, they have one advisor that they connect with, they meet with regularly. This is a person who meets them when they get off the bus. This is a person they go to when they say, I don't know what I'm doing in this class right now. And we also have an early alert system that is very successful in identifying when a student is just starting to have a challenge in a course or in their personal life, so that we can address it before it becomes an issue for them. We want to really break down those barriers. We want to eliminate potential challenges for success for these students. And as far as their relationship with JMU or UMW, yes, we've built in college tours, we've built in mentoring opportunities, we've built in a number of different experiential opportunities for them to develop a sense of belonging there as well, so that we know when they're ready to graduate with us, the transition to that four-year partner is going to be seamless. I hope that answers your question.
And I'll elaborate just a little bit on that. JMU has been very forthright with us. If we have students who maybe want to do math or want to do English, we at the community college are well versed in working with students on, okay, let's take some summer classes to get that extra math in, making sure that we are totally aligned with the four-year institution to ensure that these courses are going to transfer seamlessly. And so once the student gets to JMU, if maybe they don't want to be an elementary teacher, they want to be a secondary ed teacher, or maybe they do want to be a SPED teacher, an elementary teacher, but they want to add that ELL piece on it, JMU is going to provide our students the opportunity to hear about that in the two-year program before they ever get to the university level. So they will clearly understand what the different opportunities, the different paths are for them to be able to expand.
Any further questions, Mr.?
Thank you very much, very helpful.
Thank you. First, I want to thank you for a truly exceptional application. It is readily apparent reading your application that you have thought in great detail on how to execute a high quality plan for students in your lab school. Exceptional. And I do believe, having read your application, you have set a new watermark here in the Commonwealth. When we think about the opportunity and value of a lab school, your application ticks every element. From addressing the teacher shortage to providing deep and intensive support for students so that they are successful. Planning the program of study so that it not only addresses what is needed to graduate from high school, but then equips them to be successful and have a credential walking out your door. Big things that can be small things like meals. You've taken that into consideration. Access at home for high-speed broadband and devices, which has become the equivalent of having access to air and water in our society. Support to complete FAFSA, which we know for too many families and students becomes the barrier for access and aid for which they are eligible. Intensive and support and coordination for students with disabilities and outreach to families. And that's before they even go to the next journey of what you've prepared them to do. And so I really want to applaud you for the quality of the application that you have put forward. It is exceptional. If there's anything else that you'd like to offer at this time on your application, if not, I think we're ready to proceed. All right,
May I just say,
please.
I want to give a shout out to the whole collaborative. You know, we stand before you today with so many instructional leaders, and I just want to say thank you to them.
The quality of your instruction, the plan of your academic plan in this application is tremendous. I have a young person in my own household that if we were in your community, I would be honored, delighted, knocking at your door today, asking may a child be enrolled. I know this, we're looking forward to hearing updates in the future, but for now, we have to do the next step of the process. So is there a motion to approve Germanna's Community College application for first review and post the application for our 10-day public comment period?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor?
we've got multiple seconds.
Excellent. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, the chair votes aye as well. The motion is approved. Congratulations, you moved through to second review.
Thank you.
On behalf of the committee, I direct the staff to post the Germanna Community College Lab School application for a 10-day public comment period in accordance with the standing committee's procedures. Then compile any comments received for review by the standing committee when the application returns for second review in November before the standing committee. At the conclusion of today's meeting, you will hear from Dr. Armstrong, who I know that you've been working with, and he will give you further information on the next dates to hold on your calendar. All right. That's what this is all about, is innovative models and exciting opportunities for young people here in the Commonwealth. All right, we're going to move to item B. And for our guests from Germanna, if you'd like to take your leave, please feel free to do so. I know you want to go back and begin working on this and your next steps. All right. Item B is first review of a college partnership laboratory school application from the University of Mary Washington. The committee will hear from Dr. Rebecca Towery, director of the proposed Academy of Technology and Innovation at the University of Mary Washington. Greetings and welcome. So lovely to see you again.
Thank you for having me. I'm joined with a number of colleagues from both the University of Mary Washington and Stafford County Schools. Dean Pete Kelly from the College of Education, and we're excited to be here to share about this.
Would you like to introduce any of your guests that are with you today and have them approach? Please feel free to do so.
Dr. Jeff McClurkin, who is Chief of Staff at University of Mary Washington, with Tim O'Donnell, Provost, and we have Michael Bowling, Chief Academic Officer for Stafford County Public Schools.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here today. Again, we appreciate and understand that there's much on your agenda, and your demonstration of being here today signals the priority by which this application is for University of Mary Washington. And I want to thank you for taking the additional time to be here in person. Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Okay, setting the wrong arrow, sorry. So we are excited to share out our proposal, which will be for a regional secondary program at the high school level, serving all of Planning District 16, which is Fredericksburg and the surrounding counties, in a high school program designed around the increasingly reciprocal relationship between computer and data science as applied across content areas. So we are really leaning into University of Mary Washington's roots as both a teacher preparation center in the Commonwealth, as well as its roots in liberal arts and sciences, and bringing in that the computer science and the data science that is increasingly in high demand in the Fredericksburg region. Throughout this work, we've been grounded by really these three pillars of intentionality, which are to provide innovative K-12 experiences, both during the school year to high school students, as well as through the build out of summer programs and pipelines for elementary and middle school students. Supporting educator development, both through students at the College of Education and providing that opportunity, as well as through providing opportunities for high school students to get exposure to the possibility of pursuing becoming educators themselves. And then lastly, and certainly not least, really finding ways to leverage the work that we are doing in the lab school to benefit the broader community through service learning projects, through working with College of Education students, through serving as a demonstration site, supporting educators in all 5 localities. So just diving in briefly on the opportunities for students. I'm not going to go into all of these, but we are really wanting to lean into that partnership with UMW to provide students at the high school level with access to content area experts, really create that teacher pipeline beginning in high school on through the College of Education. You've got a very interdisciplinary approach in the way we are designing the academic model and looking to write the curriculum. So you are going to see an integrated English and history. You're going to see data and computer science embedded across content areas, and project-based learning that is throughout. So it will not be uncommon for you to see government teachers working with science teachers to create units and lessons of study. And then we're also looking to lean into personalized learning opportunities through independent study opportunities that will be a partnership to some of the group learning that is done in the environment, creating those unique elective options and creating that small school environment. This just highlights that a little bit in a graphic form. You're going to see a combination of kind of full class learning, small group learning, and independent learning that will kind of weave back and forth throughout the 4 years that students are in the school and really equip them towards becoming lifelong learners. All right, this is the part that my colleague Dean Kelly gets most excited about, which is that teacher pipeline piece of this. You want to speak?
Oh, I'm happy to. Yeah, well, one of the things that we're particularly interested in, I'm the Dean of the College of Education at the University of Mary Washington. We train teachers And I'm particularly interested in doing this within the context of a professional development school model. And it's a model for partnerships between K-12 and higher education, very similar to a teaching hospital in which we share resources across lines that help achieve mutually beneficial goals. We want to create opportunities for our students to have the experiences that they need to be teachers, but to do that in ways to help improve teaching and learning in schools. We want to take faculty who have expertise and the need to do research, and how can we allocate that resource in ways that can also help improve teaching and learning in buildings.
As part of that, we are looking to create a school that will serve as a demonstration site to the community, where you can bring in educators who are more traditional comprehensive high schools, provide them with opportunities to see interdisciplinary learning being done, project-based learning being done. And the goal is that the innovative work being done at the lab school disseminates out into the broader community and doesn't stay isolated to the regional school we're looking to create.
I'm particularly interested in this component. I'm interested in building the kind of school where I want my students to have the formative teaching experiences, and so that they can take those ideas out and disseminate using that pathway as well.
And then long-term, of course, you're looking at that vertical alignment piece, so that you're taking a little bit of this backwards design approach, where you're starting with this high school level and this college of education, but then you're going to work over time to disseminate those approaches and that background knowledge and learning of computer and data science down into earlier grades, so that students are very comfortable with that content, and it doesn't create barriers when they hear those terms, but they're excited to engage and see how that applies across content areas. We are, of course, there's a regionally accepted Teachers for Tomorrow pathway that was developed a few years ago. It would be silly for us to not make sure we include that as part of the work we're doing here. Particularly, we're hopeful with there's a great synergy with the recent awarding of a NOICE grant to UMW, providing scholarships for students going into STEM teaching fields. And so we're hoping that we can, have high school students and college of ed students working with teachers to co-design some of those summer programs and different things that hopefully gives them a little bit of that taste and excitement of what teaching can be, and will help them consider going into some of these STEM teaching fields. So I'm not going to spend much time here, but just kind of this is covered in much more detail in the application, but looking at kind of this governance board for the lab school, and also this kind of regional school board with an overlap of members to ensure we are hitting all the things we need to hit with the different codes in place. And then in terms of our operations overview, we've been having a number of conversations with divisions around kind of the division coordination of transportation options to the University of Mary Washington Stafford campus. University of Mary Washington is providing one of those two buildings to house the school. It's a great space that really is already designed to kind of do that type of alternative learning that we're looking at through small group instruction and project-based learning and those types of things. So we will be seeing, we've been having conversations about how to navigate that. We all know that transportation is a challenge in public schools right now. So we are actively having conversations with participating school divisions around how to do those things. And similarly with food service, we are very close to nearby schools with Stafford County. And so we have been working closely with the nutrition director there to kind of build out a phased process for which meals can be prepared and initially brought over. And then as the school develops and builds, we eventually will move towards building out a commercial kitchen on site. The building right now has 24 classrooms that are ready to go as early as tomorrow with technology, furniture, etc. We are looking at hopefully leveraging, if approved, some startup and operating, some startup funds that could help us do some of the things like creating a full science lab in place and creating some really robust maker spaces that will encourage the type of learning we are trying to do in the lab school. We are also working actively in conversations with participating school divisions around addressing needs for students with IEPs, EL learners, and students identified as gifted. One of our strategies, our overarching strategies there, is also to encourage as many lab school educators as will consider doing so to add additional endorsements, right? There's some work being built out in Stafford County schools to support educators in getting that EL endorsement. And then there's some, obviously some partnerships we are looking at that could help assist with educators working with UMW faculty to add some of that background knowledge and hopefully additional endorsements in special education. It would be wonderful if we could have several teachers who have gifted endorsement, have special education endorsement, and have EL endorsement on staff, but we also have some faculty specific built into the program as well. Similar to our colleagues from Germanna, we are looking at this graded funding approach. So there's that startup and operating grant funds that will help us get this off the ground as we build into having multiple cohorts running at once. We are looking at local contributions from participating school divisions, and then we are also looking at alternate revenue streams to include additional competitive grants we might pursue, as well as private fundraising. This just highlights that in a little bit more detail, what we're looking to do so that we can move towards full sustainability by the end of year 5. This also just kind of shows that we are really building a financial model that will ensure that we are very affordable for participating school divisions. So even in year 5, as there is a gradual increase while we kind of wean off of grant funding, we will still be over 1,000 below the lowest average per pupil expenditure in Planning District 16 for the fiscal year 2 years ago. So it will be very sustainable for school divisions. I've already covered some of this, but just highlighting that looking to work with school divisions and pursuing those additional grants and donations to offset those expenses as much as possible and augment student experiences. And we're excited to dive into this work.
Thank you for that excellent presentation. And I'm glad that you've stayed on this slide. While we have this up for a moment, for the benefit of the lab committee members, Dr. Armstrong and I had the opportunity to do a site visit to University of Mary Washington to provide some additional conversation and technical support on the application. And the picture on the slide before you is the facility that would be generously donated by the University of Mary Washington to house the lab school. And I have to tell you, Dr. Armstrong and I went there, having been in K-12 for some time. I'll just tell the story straight up as it is. I actually started giggling. This is a beautiful facility. You will have it is the envy of many school facilities. I have been in many school facilities that are, as Dr. Armstrong and I spoke of, that are cinder block and low ceilings and don't have open spaces. And I want to thank Mary Washington for the generosity, exceptional generosity of this beautiful facility that is able to support modern day learning with common shared learning spaces. I honestly couldn't almost comprehend that this facility was being donated for the lab school. As I said to Dr. Towery, I was like, oh, so you mean these couple classrooms here? She was like, and she, like a good teacher, walked me over to a map, the entire floor, the entire building. And it's stunning. So thank you. That's an incredibly generous contribution to your application. And it is one of the elements that, as a result, when we move on further in our agenda, as we revise the application for other lab schools in the future, your generosity in particular has underscored for us the need that the application afford applicants the opportunity to include what they are contributing to the lab school in greater detail, such as a multi-million-dollar facility. So with that, and I excuse going first to chat about the facility, but since the photo is up there and it still puts a huge smile on my face, I'll go to the lab committee members and see if they have any questions or comments regarding the application. Dr. Moran.
I'll just share with the audience that one of the areas that people should really do is to go in and do the virtual tour, because if you may not be able to tell from the words that you're using, Joan, how absolutely special this is to have that kind of, and one of the dreams that we have is that young people will not only be able to experience the lab school opportunities in their own home high schools, but that they will have deep experiential opportunities in the spaces that are college, because I have always thought and believed that one of the reasons why we have such a loss of young people when they enter their freshman year in college, out of college, is that they have not had a great transition. These lab schools, the models where kids are getting the opportunity to take that transition step, are building a very different way of thinking about what high school can be and what college can be. And so hats off to you for this. I love the Academy of Technology and Innovation, that it's not just about focusing on tech or STEM, but it's about getting kids to think using an innovation mindset. And I appreciate that in particular. I do wonder about the transportation piece, because I would see that, given the challenges that school divisions are having to just get kids in buses to their schools right now, what you're thinking about as you start to make the turn towards how do we really get this to implementation, from vision to implementation. That's one that would be on my mind logistically, so that kids have the full opportunity and some kids don't get left with no seat at the table if this is something they want to go through.
That has been a very active part. I'm meeting with the 5 area school division superintendents on a monthly basis. I started that late spring, and so it has been, even the proposed schedule that's in the draft was very consciously drafted with, okay, what are doable start times? What are doable end times for navigating the different transportation windows with different things? We have, we are fortunate that this building is, not that there's a perfect central location, but it is fairly centrally located. It is towards the southern end of Stafford County, very accessible from, King George County and city of Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania County. We're very fortunate that there's actually major road construction going on right now, which is, I think a lot of it's going to open in about a month, and every day I see them adding lanes to 95 that I'm very excited about, because it is going to be a tremendous asset in helping students get there quickly. And we are having active conversations around how to make this feasible, and doing that on a county by county basis. We know that's going to look different for city of Fredericksburg, where there's one high school, and it's much easier for students to maybe ride the bus to the high school and then take a quick shuttle up the road. We know we're having to navigate a different set of logistics when you look at a school division like Caroline County that's large and rural, and what we're looking at there. And so we're working closely with Dr. Kalberic there and thinking through possibilities around, Wi-Fi on buses and different things like that can help and augment students as they maybe have some longer travel times.
Anything further, Dr.
I also always appreciate, and I'm always drawn to the learning side of what you're doing, but I also understand behind that learning side, there's always the logistical pieces and the operational pieces. Any challenges from the standpoint of sustainability that you've identified, or what's your take in terms of
The
funding.
operation logistics. So, you know, obviously I've been very intentional in working with superintendents around building out a sustainability model that will not be dependent on continued funding from a given source. Obviously, if there is continued funding at the state level, or we are able to secure some additional competitive grants, that obviously helps and augments and will allow us to do more things, right? But I also, I think we are in a good position right now. I think what we will most need to be looking at as we move forward is I anticipate in a growing region that there could be eventual demand for satellite campuses. So that you can augment. We've also had some conversations around, you know, could you eventually in that vertical alignment piece, could you eventually extend opportunities down into middle school and elementary schools? And I think that's some of our conversation is thinking through, does that look like a regional school, or does that look like pushing curriculum that's developed that you're supporting educators with implementing at different levels? So I think those are some of the conversations we've been starting to have just a little bit of, but we'll need to get much deeper in as we continue to move forward with planning. And I say that because I do think it goes back to that operational logistics piece where you will hit a point where you may need a satellite campus in order to continue to allow either other school divisions to participate or to create ease of transportation, thinking through those food service types of things, which are incredibly important also. And we've had some conversations around creative aspects and opportunities there and partnerships with, you know, entrepreneurship programs and some of those different types of things. So there are many opportunities, but yes, to your point, Dr. Moran, there are also that continued need to keep circling back in those conversations and checking in to make sure that there's communal understanding and that we are, I keep saying to people every time we meet is keep like push back with me, like tell me what we need to fix and refine, because this is what helps make us get better at what we're looking to do.
I may come back, but okay, go ahead.
Any other members of the lab committee that would like to present questions or remarks on this application?
I just feel like I need to go see the building. Yeah, that's the end.
When is it?
I loved in both in your application as well as the presentation, the way you talked about personalized learning, that it wasn't just tech, but just a lot of small. Can you elaborate a little bit more about just what you're hoping to kind of structure that? Just because it struck me as more than just sort of technology and Wi-Fi on buses, but there is a lot more sort of intentionality with real human interaction.
Yeah, so one of the things I think can be a struggle, right, in both larger group instruction and personalized instruction is the things you miss when you don't have the other, right? So personalized learning types of models can be incredible for helping students be able to progress at their own pace. When I was in the classroom, I worked in a regional program for a long time. We had a lot of personal learning in place, and it really helped students be able to slow down when they needed to slow down and speed up when they were ready to pick up pieces of information quickly. The challenge, however, is sometimes you lose out on some of those opportunities to work on those 5 C's, right? The communication, the how to work as a team, the how to solve real world problems, right? And so one of the things we're trying to be really intentional about is providing those opportunities for kind of that whole group instruction, but then also through the partnership with the College of Education. And I spent a lot of the summer actually talking to Chamber of Commerce and Fredericksburg Regional Alliance and different businesses, because we want to get students working in small groups where they have someone over from College of Education, or they have a local business owner in cybersecurity that comes in and does some expert work with them on some different things. And you're also getting real world problems for students to solve. So one of the things we are looking at doing is having, of course, your graduation requirements will be taught in, you know, kind of classroom settings. And I hate to use traditional because I think the instructional delivery is not going to be traditional, but in terms of you going to a class, right? It will be that way. But then we are also looking at leveraging some intentionally built times in the day where students can pursue some additional electives and certifications through independent learning and then potentially through small group learning. So for example, if we have 5 different students who have decided to start pursuing their CompTIA certifications, they might do some of that through some personalized learning, but we also might bring those students together as 5 students once a week and bring in either an expert from University of Mary Washington or a business owner in the community to kind of augment what they're doing through that individual learning. And our hope there is that, you know, increasingly, right, we all have to be lifelong learners as adults. And increasingly, we see that learning taking place in different types of models. And so helping high schoolers start to be equipped with the metacognitive skills to navigate those different types of things, but introducing it at a time where you are still providing that safety net before they fully leap into higher ed or into the workplace, I think will equip them with the skills to be very adept at navigating how to continue to augment and build their skills throughout their whole lives and not just at the end of high school or at the end of college.
Love the makerspace in there.
Exactly. At this time, what I'm going to do, we have one of our committee members that will have to leave at 11.
Okay.
So while we have quorum, we're going to take action on your application.
Okay.
We're going to take action on one more item. I'm going to give you kind of
Okay.
here's the game plan. We're going to take action on one more item, and then we'll have a brief recess.
Okay.
And then I just have a couple more,
Questions?
kind
Okay.
words and remarks that your application merits, and I want to make sure we get to that.
Okay.
But because I want to move forward on your application at this time, is there a motion to approve University of Mary Washington's College Lab application for first review and post the application for our 10-day public comment period?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, and the motion is approved. And Bill, for the note for the record that Mr. Hanson has voted aye as well. All right, on behalf of the committee, I direct the staff to post the Mary Washington application for a 10-day public comment period in accordance with the standing committee's procedures, then compile any comments received from the public for the standing committee when the application returns for second review in November. Congratulations. Don't go anywhere, there's more. So if you don't mind taking a seat for a moment, we'll come back to you momentarily. At this time, we're going to take up item D, which is the proposed 2024 calendar of college partnership lab school standing committee meetings for the coming year. I'm going to read a series of dates. I have them, Mr. Chapman, and we'll get a motion therein from the committee members. I would propose the following dates for lab school committee meetings in 2024, January 8th, February 5th, March 4th, May 6th, June 3rd, September 2nd, October 4th, and November 4th of 2024. Is there a motion therein from a committee member?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well, and the calendar dates are approved for 2024. Thank you very much. At this time, just for organizational purposes, we are going to take a 10-minute recess. We'll reconvene. Well, let's, because it's kind of in between the 11 and the 12. Let's come back at 11:10 and we will reconvene the meeting. Thank you.
doing an interdisciplinary model in the first 2 years for students who don't have Algebra 1 prior to starting, because we've got one county who's moving very aggressively towards all students having Algebra 1 by 8th grade, and you have other localities where that won't be the case. And so we're looking at essentially doing a interdisciplinary course of Algebra 1 with the first half of geometry embedded into it, and then Algebra 2 with the second half of geometry embedded into it, which we think will really help students access those mappings. I actually think it will also help geometry be a little more accessible, and conversely algebra be a little more accessible when you're learning those two in conjunction. We are planning to leverage, some of what we're planning to leverage is that that combination of the in-person small group and whole group learning experiences to do some of that differentiation with students. And I think that's where having the partnership with the College of Education is going to be just create those win-win situations where you have College of Education students getting great hands-on, getting to co-design differentiation models with K-12 educators and faculty, but then you also have students who will be able to, College of Ed students, to clarify, who will be able to maybe facilitate some of those small group breakouts, or maybe they work with a larger group while the K-12 teacher pulls out a smaller group of students and does some of that work. And then I also think that project-based learning provides great opportunities for students from different regions to come together and work together. I think if we can continue to interact with businesses in the community from across the region and pull together different types of experiences from, we've had conversations around everything from cybersecurity firms, which are abundant in the region with Quantico and Dahlgren in close vicinity, but you also have nonprofits like Goodwill, where maybe students can be helping with data analysis of website traffic and helping them do those types of things. I think we are really trying to think through how you give students those experiences. And I think that goes back to something you mentioned, Dr. Moran, about providing those opportunities for students to get exposure to what it's like to be on a college campus, get exposure to faculty and business leader experts, get exposure to the type of work you do where you're creating a presentation and sharing it out with a group of people. I think those types of building in those exposures are going to be helpful. And then we do have one position built into the staff that I think is worth mentioning, which is a systems and outreach navigator, and they will be supporting with some of the PDS work and also working closely with counselors to help students almost build out a little bit of a customized pathway where students are increasingly owning that learning process, but they are an assist to help them think through, if their end goals are X, Y, and Z, what are the steps they need to take, or the certifications or the college courses they want to take to start to position themselves for that piece.
Thank you. That helps.
Mr. Hanson, do you have any questions or further remarks for University of Mary Washington?
I don't. I was kind of cut off with the break, but
I apologize for that.
I'm not sure if this was covered, but maybe just a question on enrollment and capacity, and also just in terms of outreach and how you're going to be working to get the student body that you're envisioning to get.
Great. So we are looking in year one at recruiting 100 students from across the region for that first 9th grade year, and then adding essentially a cohort of 100 every year after that until we are at a full 400 students in the building. And then in terms of recruitment, there I think is going to need to be a lot of push and effort to the different school divisions. I'll be attending some different college and career nights, and then really having active conversations with counselors at middle school counselors at all 5 school divisions, and then any opportunities I have where I can push in directly and talk to students or talk to community members. It's part of why I've also been trying to be proactive about talking to the business community, because they are also parents in our community. And so trying to get that word out. We have started social media and a website, and we're working to launch a newsletter so that we can continue to kind of keep the community apprised of the planning process as we continue to walk through this, so that hopefully as we continue to move forward, we will have laid that groundwork for community awareness about the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, quickly, I want to tell you a funny story. So, and it pertains to obviously Mary Washington. So I was at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, pulled out my driver's license to get a ticket to go into the museum. And the student on the other side said, "You're from Virginia." He said, "I went to the University of Mary Washington. I have dysgraphia, and it was the most exceptional experience of my life." And he, for the next 20 minutes, told me his experience that he had at your institution, and it was absolutely remarkable. So I just wanted to share that with you. Just pay, honor to that testimony from the student of there's a life that you have so profoundly changed that when he sees a Virginia driver's license, he extols how valuable the education that he received at Mary Washington has been in his life. So thank you for that. I really appreciated the opportunity and the time that Dr. Armstrong and I had with you to review your application. And in that conversation, much like what Dr. Moran has raised today, we discussed transportation, special education and ELL, meals, some of the administrative, operational items that can really become challenging for a school division. And I think you've really done an excellent job of addressing those questions, and your continued engagement with the superintendents is really going to be so incredibly important. I mean, this is a shared understanding of how we're going to get it done. And I think you've highlighted it well that, if you've got a blended curriculum, you've got braided funding, and the backbone of that is going to be really kind of these memorandums of understanding, written documentation that sets clear expectations between the school division and the lab school. And that's done not from just a legal perspective, that's done to have a shared understanding of, hey, this is my lane, here's what I'm going to do. This is your lane, this is what you're going to do. And when you have that kind of mutuality, you can have good, efficient relationships. But when it's murky or gray, sometimes that doesn't feel good, especially when there's, in this case, it's going to be 6 schools effectively involved because you have 5 plus yours. So I want to thank you for continuing to have that kind of engagement with the superintendents. And it's hard. Right? It's hard to kind of think through how are we going to bring students from 5 different school divisions right across the area into this one central location for things like what time should school start? How would school activities work? And I think that along the way, there are probably going to be some bumps and some hiccups and some learning moments and some growth. It's going to happen. And I think, but you're on a solid foundation of working with one another, and this open dialogue that you've created and these memorandums of understanding, you're going to work through it. And I can see that. I mean, I can see the commitment you have for your students to do this, and it's really exceptional. So I just want to those are areas that I think we're all going to benefit from learning. And we talked about this a little bit on our visit. Part of lab schools is a laboratory to learn. And the very nature of learning is there will be things that are tough, that may not be ideal. But when you apply that learning and you're open to it, guess what? You grow and you get better. That's the hallmark of what goes on in the classroom. Otherwise, kids would just show up on day 1 ready for kindergarten. They'd know their ABCs and they could spell their name. And what would we need to do? It doesn't work that way. First day you show up at kindergarten. You have to learn where to put your book bag and where your seat is. And, it's a growth process. So I just want to say thank you for your diligence in continuing to run to ground those operational issues, because I think when we reviewed your application, that was the one thing that just, we know it's going to be a little sticky. The second was, I really want to compliment you on your program of study. That curricular expertise, it comes through in the application and is readily apparent. Your instructional delivery model being multimodal, love it. Happy to see it. You're blending, you're using different modalities to provide instruction, different settings. That's exactly what we're looking for in best in class educational experience. Students learn best in different types of environments, be it large group, small group, online, and you're really leveraging all of those, and you're not just doing one thing. You're doing multiple things in different ways. And that differentiation, that personalization of learning is going to produce, I think, for you, an enhanced outcome for your students. So I wanted to thank you for that as well. So we look forward to seeing you back in November. And if there's any closing remarks that you would like to present to the committee or make for the purpose of the record, we would be delighted to entertain those at this time. But I really do want to thank you for such an exceptional application. It really is wonderful. And for all the time that you've put in to get to this place.
Thank you for the opportunity. We are just incredibly excited for what we believe this can do for students and future educators in the community.
Yeah, the opportunity to build a school from the ground up with a focus on teacher preparation. We're very grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we are now going to move back to item C, which is proposed revisions to the College Partnership Lab School application. And to highlight this matter for the committee is Ms. Fineski.
Thank you. As we're in a learning environment, one of the reading and the review of all of the incoming lab school applications has provided us with the opportunity to review the overall application and the questions that are being asked of the applicants to complete. And we've found that as we're reading and examining responses, that there's certain clarifications to certain questions and then also additional information that is needed. So we've continually revised, we're working towards continually revising the application. Some of the clarifications that are required are any intent for compliance waivers, documentation of the curriculum pathways, and we're seeing some of these questions in these conversations, comprehensive staffing charts of how the lab school is going to be governed, administration of curriculum for students with disabilities, the student selection or lottery process, and information on sustainability and funding. The areas that really need additional information are the startup and 5-year revenue and expenditures, and some detail around the clarification of that information, a validation that the application was reviewed by legal counsel, the school or the higher education legal counsel, and then any details on in-kind contributions, again, around the budgeting and financial section. So that we're going to continue to work on the application, and as new versions come out, post them for new applicants to use the newer applications.
Thank you, Ms. Fineski.
Okay, thank you.
For the benefit of the lab committee members, the staff and Ms. Fineski have been working tirelessly really to reflect on our conversations, what's been going on internally in the review process, and to really enhance, supercharge this application. It's not just adding more, it's strategically asking the right question and hopefully streamlining the application as well. So what I want to flag for the committee members is we will see for action for first review in November, an updated and revised application. If there is any area of the application that you would like further refined that was not on Ms. Vineski's list, if in the next week or so you absolutely could contribute that in today's conversation. And we wanted her to be here as an action item so that you could ask her any questions. But if there's anything that you feel that is not on her list that needs to be on the list so that changes are made to the application, kind of speak now in the next week or so that when we come into the November meeting, we have a really robust application that we're feeling good about. So Dr. Moran or Mr. Hansen, is there anything that you have in terms of questions for Ms. Vineski or areas that you didn't hear on her list that you want to make sure that she's dialing in on?
I don't. I appreciate the continued improvement, and I think this will, help us get better outcomes along the way. And so, just thank you for bringing this to us. I thought you were going to say, "Speak up now or forever hold your peace." So we didn't quite go that far.
We're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet. But thank you, Mr. Hansen. We do appreciate that.
I want to affirm that what we're hearing from these applications today with focus on that key priority in Virginia to be sure that we are both recruiting young people who may see a career path into education, as well as creating lab schools with the intentional purpose of affirming practices that we should be putting in place for the future of young people in Virginia. That I would like to just affirm that I feel like that in some way should be represented in a really clear way inside the application. We've questioned some other proposals about that have not been that strong in that area. And yet I think it's a look for of the committee.
That's great.
Based on some of our past conversations with applicants.
That's great input, Dr. Moran. So what I'm hearing, just to reflect back if this is an accurate capture, we for our applicants, we're asking questions about how they're addressing the teacher shortage, how they are doing teacher induction or teacher professional development. We are asking questions around how they are applying the knowledge from this experience in the lab school to teacher prep. And it's almost kind of what we heard from IALS, the International Association of Lab Schools, that one of the real differentiators for lab schools was the intentionality and quality of instruction and professional development for teachers. And so maybe that becomes a greater emphasis in the application and a pull that focus. Because we're picking it up in conversations, but there's not a dedicated section in the application that just speaks to those elements, which
it is that with clarity.
Yeah.
What will the learning experience of young people be? And I think people are really hitting that. What will the experience of, if I am Mary Washington or Germanna or JMU or any of the sponsoring higher education agencies, what is the obligation to ensuring that students that they have that are heading towards teaching, or that the lab school should not be a missed opportunity to develop sort of the future skill sets of that group of pre-service teachers. And that's been, I think, a clearly stated commitment at the committee level that we're looking for that, but it does not have to be particular. You don't have to address it inside the application right now in a specific, clear way.
Great capture. Any other elements that, one of the other directions that we've provided to Ms. Vineski is to reflect on that conversation we had from IALS I really value that and want to thank staff again for arranging that conversation. I think that the International Association of Lab Schools really helped clarify what are the distinguishing characteristics of lab schools and gave us almost a organizational tool, I think, to think about in the application. They were very, what goes on in instruction, what goes on with the teachers, what will be your intended outcome for the lab schools, and how is it different than if they were to stay in another school setting? Those types of elements. And I know we've had that conversation, but all right. I'm sure that the staff will be iterative over the next few weeks with us. And I want to thank Dr. Moran and Bill for or Mr. Hanson, excuse me, for your input. And we look forward to continuing to refine the application.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much. All right. At this time, we're going to move to item E, which is staff presentations on workflow. To present this item is Dr. Andy Armstrong, Assistant Superintendent of Strategic Innovation. Dr. Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I want to say first how excited I am about the two applicants that we heard today. It is heartening to see that and to the response and to see this process, as we just discussed, really crystallize more. I know for me personally, it's great. So I'm very excited about where we're going. I do want to zoom out for a moment for the committee and talk about where we are with how we are managing applications. And this is very timely because when we do present a revised application, I expect, as you'll see in my pipeline update, that we'll have another wave of applicants that's going to come through in the next few months. And I'm looking forward to having an updated and current application to really streamline that process. As we all know, we have until June 30th to obligate the funds, the $100 million that was included in the Lab Schools Fund. And we also need to provide some runway for contract ratification. So working backwards, I've had individual conversations, I think, with every planning grant recipient and definitely every applicant who's currently in the pipeline about the revised timeline. So we do want to ensure that we get our applicants pending approval at every stage in front of the state board no later than I'd say April, in order to provide time for contracts to be ratified between then and June. Subject to change as this streamlines as we keep moving forward, but do want to frame our work around this timeline to a great degree. And then going from there, we would need to have our final standing committee reviews in March. And then in the meantime, something that's been very valuable has been the on-site work that we are planning and that we conducted. Our trip to Mary Washington, I think, made that process so much more efficient. So the investment of time that we made to go and sit face-to-face, doing away with the back and forth emails and the calls, I think really paid off in spades, as we saw today with UMW. We'll be doing the same thing, I anticipate, in Harrisonburg, potentially this month, as well as in Abingdon with some other applicants later this month. And we do have a date in November as well. So we're trying to get to every region. And if we need to, we can do that more in January and February, but do want to be available to our applicants as we're working through the process right now. Are there any questions, though, about the timeline in general?
Maybe not the timeline, but just in terms of potential applicants from lower income and disadvantaged areas, just anything in the pipeline with those regions or populations?
Yes, sir. I will be updating you on all those details, I think, in the next the last item on the agenda today. And yes, Mr. Hanson, we do have applicants from diverse regions. And one thing I'm excited about today is we saw Region 3 and Region 4 represented. We had Region 1 already approved by the state board, but we anticipate, as you'll see in those details, Mr. Hanson, that we'll have a very representative applicant pool coming through in the months ahead.
Dr. Armstrong, I appreciate you noting the regional locations of these, because it would be great for us by the time we've cycled through to literally have hit all 8 regions of the state in terms of the divisions.
Yes, and we do have applicants from every region. We do have planning grants in every region. So I agree with that assessment. Hopeful that'll be the outcome when we're done. When we talk about current technical assistance and support, I mentioned a little bit of this already. We are continuing to have subject area team feedback. I do want to say that as I contemplate the workflow, our subject area team experts are all extremely valuable, but also very busy people that we have here on the team at VDOE. So I have been scheduling weekly meetings with the subject area team, and then rather it being a responsive meeting when we get an application, just to keep everybody looped in and to make this more efficient. And they've been great at providing the feedback in a timely manner, but they are spread pretty thin. So I do want to make the committee aware of that, but we're working hard to get through every application, provide some valuable feedback. Calls are happening on a near constant basis. I've been in touch with several presidents of community colleges, as well as applicants from other universities in the last few months. Had some very rich conversation, a lot of interest, and again, just working with them and encouraging them to apply and get things rolling as soon as possible so that we can again make this happen before June 30th. We are going to plan webinars in addition to the on-site visits. And if there are applicants who want to, almost an office hours type webinar, if they want to get online and just check in and we can walk through any kind of feedback and technical assistance and applications, we'll also offer that. We are having weekly check-ins. Ms. Wadiska and I, we discuss progress and make sure that we're aligned with our priorities as well. And then we already talked about the regional on-site workshops, which again, I think will be very valuable moving forward. Right now, we've got the subject matter expert team and me. And as of October 10th, I will have a new staff member who will be an innovation coordinator, and she will be coming on board. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of the responsibility around more the administrative side of this with her so that we can be more efficient with our applicants providing feedback. As we're considering future needs, I mentioned streamlining the subject matter expert team. For the on-site workshops, that will require travel, that will require mobilizing resources and time away from the office to do that. Something we want to consider moving forward. And then the learning network. We want to get into more detail about this, I believe, in November, and something you heard about from my ALS as well last month. And convening this professional learning network among our applicants and among the approved lab schools is going to be very important for the sustained success of this initiative. And I'm excited about reaching out to other established lab schools nationwide, to ILS. We really put that together with a lot of thought and a lot of consideration. Want to do that sooner rather than later. I think now that we're seeing this momentum, we want to get those applicants really helping each other out, providing support where we can, and getting them looped in with resources that are out there to help them be successful. So that's where we are with just our workflow, our staffing, some of what we have coming down the pipe, and happy to answer any questions.
Questions from committee members?
Or ideas and suggestions, anything you have.
So Dr. Armstrong and Mr. Hansen, this is really for the benefit, I think, of the state board. You know, Dr. Armstrong has done a really exceptional job, and we thought it was important to surface the staffing and workflow capacity, as well as to project potentially future needs. I think we really heard from IALS the importance of developing a professional learning community. And we've heard from the lab schools themselves, their desire to collaborate and to create a learning community here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I think this may be an area where we will need some ambassadorship from the state board or other state leaders to really support and push in additional capacity to help nurture an information exchange and a knowledge exchange between the lab schools here in the Commonwealth. So that's just something we've continued to hear that of its importance. We would love to see a plan for that, but thus far, it's not something that was included in terms of resources for this endeavor. There were resources invested for the lab schools. And Dr. Moran, you've been so eloquent in talking about, one of the things I think we've been long interested in here in the lab committee has been an inventory of innovation that we know has existed in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I mean, we're not new to lab schools in the Commonwealth. We actually do have a history of lab schools here. And I think one of the tools that we would really love to see is a visualization of the various types of public schools that are in the Commonwealth, and then data behind some of those so that we can learn from what's really effective in the Commonwealth and what's working, so that we can begin to do that at scale with more intentionality versus, one thing in a region and one thing in a region. We really want to start being more intentional about that. And so we've talked about that. There haven't been the financial resources yet to do that, but that might be something Mr. Hansen to surface with other state board members and certainly other interested parties. I think we want to see these lab schools be wildly successful. And it's more than just the lab schools. I think we really want to invest in a culture of innovation in the Commonwealth and help support the various types of modalities, such as governor schools. We've heard a lot about the governor schools through our lab committee deliberations. Those are highly successful models here in the Commonwealth that really benefit students. Right. And sharing the insight from that broadly is really going to be for benefit to all of us, especially now as we're confronting, we heard it this morning, a pressing teacher shortage. So that would be just kind of we're going to kind of surface some things here sometimes for others to be aware of. And this one's worth surfacing.
And Madam Chair, for context, there are less than 200 lab schools worldwide on the planet. And if we accomplish the goals that this committee has set out to do, we will be home to probably at least 5, if not more % of the world's lab schools in Virginia, and which is wonderful. But to maintain that, to make it successful, will require resources to do so.
Yeah.
So it will be something Virginia can be proud of, but we'll need to manage it.
And as I've always said, Dr. Armstrong, the goal for me of any school space that thinks of itself as innovating up to better serve young people, whether it was through the Innovation High School grants that have come from the department, or whether it was through some of the governors. Let me go back. Through the governor's health and medical sciences academies that have developed out, and my former division was a recipient of one of those, or whether it's going to visit Goochland public schools and getting to see kids engaging in the use of virtual reality as a way to take them on field trips and on-site field excursions anywhere in the world, and be able to tie that back to the content that they're learning, experiences that they would never get otherwise. That being able to identify where that kind of work is happening and to use the lab schools as potentially a vehicle to elevate up the need for that kind of innovation space in every school in Virginia. And I think the lab schools are going to be a great model for how do you get to that without needing to be specifically a lab school. That's, for me, the lab schools are teaching schools for all of us. Right. And so I'm really excited about that, and just want to just put in a plug that the Virginia Leads Innovation Network, which is funded by the Department of Ed in partially, I think could be a great space. It would be worth maybe reaching out to Gina Keller and talking about, is there a way that the lab school network potentially could take advantage of some of that resourcing support as well? I don't know. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this time, we're going to, you can stay here for a while. Get comfortable,
Yes,
Dr.
I will.
Armstrong.
I am.
All right, we're going to move to item F, which is the per pupil funding of college partnership lab schools. I've asked Dr. Armstrong to join the committee today to surface the VDOE allowable per pupil funding. This is as we're thinking about being stewards of the resources that are available and providing guidance. This is just an element where we wanted to surface. So Dr. Armstrong, please proceed.
Certainly, and we will have a formal memo for the committee. I anticipate in November. We've been working with finance with Mr. Dickey and Mr. Lanza, and I know responsive to some of the questions that we had, I believe, during the summer when our first lab school application was approved, is just setting some clear parameters around the ask that our lab schools are making out of this fund. And Mr. Lanza and his team have arrived at a number that represents that per pupil cost that we would expect to see from our applicants, and we'll include that. It's what we've seen today. It is not out of alignment with that. We don't anticipate it's going to cause any major changes, which you've already seen, but we will include that in a memo and then integrate that into our application as well. But that work has been done. I just wanted to give a quick preview of what you can expect in November, and we'll have all the details then.
So this is part of our ongoing effort to provide clarity to applicants. You know, if you're an applicant and you're thinking about putting in a lab school application, you might be wondering, well, what would be the allowable per pupil funding that I can request? Or how do I go about calculating that? Or where would I find that information? That's a great question that let's run to ground and answer. So there's ease for the applicant to know. And then when they are filling out that application or they're thinking about doing this, and they get to the application on that section on sustainability, there's rock solid information from the state about what's allowable. So again, this is just looking to provide that support for the applicant.
And Madam Chair, in
Yes, sir.
addition to that, you just mentioned that I'll add the funding is one area of the application. We mentioned the lottery too. The lottery process seems, it might in our minds seem very simple. It's not. I've gotten some guidelines, a draft that's being reviewed by legal now that we'd like to include for applicants to help develop a lottery that's going to be compliant with what we have outlined here. So again, iterative, of course, but we're tackling every issue and efficiently resolving some of these questions.
I'm delighted to hear that. You know, this has been a question throughout every lab school application that we've received, and providing clear guidance at scale to all applicants eases that process.
For everybody.
Yeah, everyone. Yep. All right. Excellent. Let's move to item G, which is an update on the college partnership labs. I'm sorry. Mr. Hanson, did you have a question on item F? I'm so sorry if you did.
No, I just, the volume wasn't working. I couldn't hear you for part of it, but I did just want to acknowledge your comments about the state board's understanding of the challenges and resources and other needs, and just very much appreciate that. And also a commentary on where we are positioned as a Commonwealth with our lab school priorities, and just along those lines, I just know that we will make this a priority. I think it's going to be helpful to have clarity on what the needs are and what we're anticipating, with the cadence and flow of applications, the cadence and flow of schools as they are getting off the ground, and just what the needs are going to be. And maybe you've already got that mapped out, but I think I even stressed that at our very first committee meeting of just understanding the workflow during the approval and ramp up and implementation timeframes. And I just also really agree that we ought to be producing, in essence, of what works, clearinghouse of those best practices and those things that we are learning that can really be instrumental around the Commonwealth, but also to share with others who are following our lead. And Joan, I think to your comment too about just helping us learn more as we're also looking for other options and opportunities to provide greater options for students and parents and communities going forward.
And Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Hanson, thank you for those comments. I attended the Virginia Longitudinal Data System Conference last week and sat with members of Dr. Meyer's team in data and reporting and research, and they are conducting a lot of the work you mentioned and essentially inventorying what are the innovative choice options we have in Virginia, everything from specialty centers to CTE programs to lab schools, and getting that reliable data as a starting point, and then integrating the work that we're doing here is going to be critical, and it's going to set us apart. I'm really excited about that. So that work is in progress.
Thank you.
So I feel like it's appropriate. I'd love to, we're going to come back to item G. I'm going to take a chair's indulgence for a moment and let's move to item H. This is, we should call this the Mr. Hansen item. This is the pipeline, Mr. Hansen. You so thoughtfully at our very first meeting said we should have a pipeline or a forecast of when applicants will need assistance, where they will need assistance. And Dr. Armstrong today has an update for that. And I'm really excited for him to tell you more about the outreach that VDOE has been proactively doing to applicants to help schedule them for an appointment.
Yes, and thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. We have spent a tremendous amount of time advising, counseling, answering questions. I've been learning myself as we're going through this, but I was able to take a shot at providing you with some broad level data around, okay, who do we have right now in our standing committee review phase? Who has submitted their application but hasn't come before this committee yet? Who have I talked to? And they're going to submit an application somewhere in the near future. And then who do we have planning grants out there for who have yet to submit their application to really give us any solid information about where they are? So I will run through that really quick. As you all know, currently in the standing committee review process, we have heard from UMW, Germanna, and James Madison as well. In addition to that, George Mason has submitted an application that our subject area experts have reviewed. Mountain Gate Community College has submitted an application that's been reviewed by our subject area experts. And I'll show you in a tiered calendar in the next slide where they're going to fall in this. And then I've had calls with Emory and Henry, UVA, ODU, who has 2 lab school applications or grants in process right now, as well as George Mason's second lab school applicant, Ferrum and Eastern Shore. And I anticipate that we'll receive applications from them in the month or months ahead. I would anticipate by the first of the year, we will have applications submitted to our content area or subject area experts by then. We have planning grants outstanding right now from Roanoke. Ferrum, I did speak to Ferrum. I know they're working through their application as well. Piedmont, Virginia, Lynchburg, Virginia Union, Norfolk State, and then another planning grant from ODU. Don't have quite as much clarity around where they are in the process, but I'm reaching out to all of our, any institute of higher education that's involved in this process now, just to give them an update on our timeline, make sure they understand, where we are with our work so that they can plan accordingly. Put that into the cascading calendar form. You can see where we are right now. We just heard from UMW and Germanna, and then I anticipate we will then see, we'll have them here for second review with the standing committee in November. I will say that the BOE approval I put for January. I believe the timeline between the standing committee meeting in November and then the state board meeting in November might be a little too tight, pending their approval from the second review to go in front. And I was also informed that there was a December state board meeting. I just heard that today. So this timeline, I will hopefully be able to condense a little bit more. So if you take this, and I'll revise this for the purpose of the committee, if we could hopefully get UMW and Germanna in front of the state board pending their approval at second review in December. We potentially could hear from George Mason, Mountain Gate, and JMU again in November, pending some work we're going to do with the applicants in the meantime. And then you see they would cascade through as well. I would anticipate Emory and Henry, ODU, and UVA coming through, if not in January, perhaps in December. I'm actually excited that we have a December meeting because I can take this and spread it out a little bit more. And then by February, we'll have a second George Mason, Eastern Shore, and Ferrum. And then you can see kind of how that timeline then falls out as you go through the 2 levels of standing committee review as well as state board approval. Now, this is all anticipated. There's a lot that has to happen between when that application is sent to our team here at DOE and when it does ultimately get approved by the state board. But and there are still several applicants who have planning grants who we really need to get some clarity around where they are right now. But I'm optimistic with what we're seeing here that this will at least have these applicants in front of us for approval pending the standing review as well as the state board between now and April. So quick overview, trying to map this out. I think it is a representative group. You'll see there, we have four-year universities. We have different regions. We've got Tidewater, Northern Virginia, Southwest. We have community colleges. I'm excited about a lot of what I've heard from these applicants. The diversity in themes too. I spoke to Dr. Schaefer at Eastern Shore, and they're going to take advantage of Wallops Island, the aerospace industry. You've got Emory Henry, it's working on health sciences. We've heard about teacher prep. It's just really coming together nicely, and I'm looking forward to seeing this through. ODU looking at a maritime theme in cooperation with Newport News. So yeah, it's exciting. It'll be a lot of work in the meantime, but we're eager to get into it and hope to see this calendar fill up even more. And again, I'll revise this to include that additional December meeting as well. Is that helpful or more confusing? I just want to, okay, good.
Really good. Thank you.
Sure.
Excellent.
Very helpful. And my apologies, I'm traveling and don't have the slides up in front of me, but maybe just again, not having information in front of me, I apologize if you mentioned this, but just an update on the HBCUs within the Commonwealth and their interest in activity and participating.
Sure. I have received communication from Hampton University and I need to reach out to them today. They are working through a planning grant and I need to get some clarity about where they are on that. So I know Hampton University is interested. Norfolk State has a planning grant. Virginia Union has a planning grant as well. So we do have some HBCU representation that's in the pool, but I do need to reach out to some of them to see where they are in the application process.
Thank you.
This is excellent. We look forward to seeing a continued update on this rolling forecast. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I need to beg forgiveness from our AV team because I'm going to go back now to item G after we just did H because we got excited about that one. So Dr. Armstrong, would you please provide us with an update on how it's going with the planning grant expenditures?
Certainly.
So while this is not an area we have purview on, again, to the benefit of, the comment made by Mr. Hansen, this does give us a sight line of where who's planning and working and thinking about a lab school and where we might be in the expenditure of those resources. So I think it's just beneficial for us to have context on the conversation. So thank you. And back to you, Dr. Armstrong.
Certainly, Madam Chair. And there was a $5 million original fund allocated for the planning grants. And we have 16 that have been approved. 2 are still in pending status. I think Ferrum is really just a matter of sending out the notification, which was revised, and they will then be approved to add to this number. And we have, even before that, a little over $3 million of the $5 million has been awarded at this point. So really moving the needle on our expenditures. And I'm sorry, in this, the actual amount that we have provided and funded, but that's how much has been awarded in the grant. Of course, they do provide us with progress reports at various intervals during the process. And there is an expectation that once you've been approved for a planning grant, you are going to apply for the implementation grant and go through the application process. So that's where we are. That has definitely increased, I think, since you all got that data last, and we'll keep you updated on that progress. And thank you to Ms. Nesky who put that together for me.
Exactly. So if you haven't applied for a planning grant yet and you're interested,
Good.
there's still resources
Yes,
available.
there are.
And if you applied for a planning grant and you're working on your application, please see Dr. Armstrong and make sure that you reserve your time with him for a site visit or a technical call so that we can see your application. To summarize all of this information, we are going to be very busy between now and March.
Yes.
That is the timeline. So all interested applicants between now and March, we want to see you, we want to meet with you, we want to consider you because applicants will need to be before the State Board of Education by April of 2024 so that they can be reviewed by the State Board of Application and that the VDOE will have time to develop a contract and that will be ratified and completed by the date of expiration for funds. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And Madam Chair, I've been in touch. Just went through the list really quick. Of these 18, I've personally contacted 15. So we know the interest is there. I think updating them on our timelines and encouraging them to really maybe ramp up their efforts a bit will be beneficial for everybody.
Excellent. All right, at this time, is there discussion of any other current issues before the committee? Hearing none, is there any public comment, Mr. Chapman, on non-agenda items? No. Since there's no additional items at this time, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Armstrong.
Thank you.